Good evening, and welcome to the Venus Mystery Series, Episode 3. My name is Wednesday Palacios, and I am your author, and I am reading from Venus with Her Head in the Clouds by myself, Wednesday Palacios. When I last was reading, we left off where the family was being interrogated by Detectives Crown and Brownlee about the murder of Venus's dear friend, Jill. Her dear friend and secretly her girlfriend. So, let's begin. Mr. Abraham looked perplexed and answered, "No, we are against violence." "I've never even seen a gun," said Clarissa. The detectives looked at me, and for some reason I felt guilty, under a spotlight. Me either," I said. "I just came over from the soup bowl to see if she was going to work tonight. She wasn't feeling good. She had the cramps." Detective Brownlee gave Jill's parents his card. "If you have any other info, like boyfriends, enemies, or drugs, or whatever, let us know. If we are going to solve this, we need real info. We will be in touch." We all nodded silently. 3 people shattered by the death of a loved one. We watched as the detectives left and stood dumbfounded in the center of the apartment. I didn't know what to do with myself. The person I loved most in the world was gone, and my life had just been shattered like someone took a baseball bat to a glass window. I couldn't stay in that apartment another moment. I was scared, and I couldn't think, so I roller skated over to my bungalow. It used to belong to my parents, but after their death I had inherited it. It was near the soup bowl, which they also had owned. Jill and I got working papers at 15 years old and started working at the joint. Mr. Abraham managed it until I turned 18, and then the restaurant was mine. The soup bowl was just a good old-fashioned hippie joint with a jukebox, vegetarian and non-vegetarian soups, carrot juice, celery soda, and salads, but no alcohol. My parents were the coolest hippies in Venice, deeply in love, and very popular in the community. After the Venice Pier burned down in 1974, people were looking for places to hang out. My parents' little hangout, complete with a dance floor for the disco fans, began to be a popular hangout spot. By the time I turned 18, I was facing a thriving business. Jill was beautiful, the shining star of the place. Her curly blonde hair down her back and her tan skin went well with her everyday bell-bottom jeans and tied midriff shirts. Our mode of transportation was roller skates. Our love was as deep as our parents' love for each other, and we spent our off time listening to Bee Gees tunes or acquiring the latest Stevie Wonder or Fleetwood Mac albums. Being undercover lovers was so cool to me because it heightened our love somehow. Both our mothers had brown eyes and our fathers had blue eyes. So we both had hazel eyes, and while Jill had amazingly natural blonde curls, I had chestnut brown hair with big waves that reached my waist. We had matching sterling silver rings with a mother of pearl stone in the center. She and I dressed pretty much the same, so people just looked at us as either sisters or best friends. Our lives were secret and perfect. I opened the door to my bungalow, finding the air stale. I took off my skates and wiggled my toes, looking around the place. The big brown leather sofa and the 2 big orange bean bags faced the television with its antennae pointing to the ceiling. We had decided to cover the walls with big posters of seagulls in flight, and I didn't have end tables in my living room, but large wooden spools we had liberated from construction sites and painted orange and brown. The kitchen was small, just meant for cooking and storing food, with a door leading to the back porch. A small hall behind the living room led to the dining room, with the usual dining table and cabinet for plates, bowls, etc. My favorite thing in the dining room was a wall-length painting that my mother had us all participate in. First, she had us all go out and pick leaves, which she shellacked to the canvas. Then she had us all dip our hands in paint and slap them against the canvas. Everyone had to sign the bottom. I stood there staring at the names on the bottom right corner. Venus, Jill, Maggie, James, Clarissa, Jonathan. I remembered the day we did the painting. It was Thanksgiving Eve, the day before their accident. There was a kind of haze in the sky that suggested rain, and it was about 70 degrees outside. Jill and I were playing ping pong in the backyard while our parents were chilling in the living room, discussing whether to cook a Thanksgiving dinner or I lost my place. A Thanksgiving dinner or volunteer to serve at the local soup kitchen. Nobody could reach an agreement, which is what drove Jill and I out into the backyard in the first place. Suddenly, my mother was at the back door calling us inside. She was all excited about this idea to make a piece of art for Thanksgiving to commemorate how lucky we were and how much we had to be thankful for. It sounded like a lot of fun, and we all scampered outside to scoop up leaves and pick the best for the canvas. I smiled as I thought about that day. It started to rain as we began dipping our hands in paint, and we had so much fun laughing and leaving our handprints on the canvas for all times. Our parents had reached a decision. For Thanksgiving, we would open the doors of the soup bowl and serve until the free food ran out. Our mothers would get up in the morning and they would buy as much as they could in the grocery store, and our fathers would set up tables and chairs to accommodate the crowd. Jill and I stayed up until 1 a.m. making flyers. I think that was the day I fell in love with Jill. We were just kids, but when she looked at me, I knew she felt the same. We slept a few hours and went out tacking up the flyers all over Venice Beach. Jill held my hand as we walked home, feeling accomplished and happy. The memory made me burst into tears. She was gone. Forever. In the middle of my grief, the telephone rang. It was Pepper Jackson. Pepper and Sylvia were close friends to Jill and I. They were also lovers. Pepper wanted me to know that she and Sylvia were on their way over, believing I shouldn't be alone at a time like this. Oh, God, no, I thought. I just wanted to be alone. And at the same time, I didn't want to be alone. Chapter 2. Pepper was long, black, and gangly, with the prerequisite mid-sized afro, red bell-bottom jeans, and a V-neck t-shirt. She was as tomboyish as anyone I had ever known, and this evening she was fuming, pacing back and forth in my living room. Her fists were clenched, and she snorted, "I can't believe this kind of thing is happening." Her lover, Sylvia, a blonde, middle-aged southern white woman, and so far opposite Pepper, even liberals stared at them, said soothingly, "Well, I just don't know what you think we can do." Pepper stopped pacing and looked up. "Yeah, that's what's so infuriating. I don't want to cry." And she did cry. She triggered Sylvia, which naturally triggered me. Finally, I got up and opened the window wider to smell the ocean breeze. I did not want to keep crying. I wanted to do something, like Pepper said. But what could I do? And then it hit me. Whap! The idea hit me like a piano falling on me from the third-floor window. I whipped my head around, glaring at Sylvia. "Oh, my God, Sylvia!" I exclaimed. "You work at police headquarters." Sylvia bobbed her blonde curls. "Yeah, but I'm a file clerk. I'm not a detective." Pepper was nodding because she got it too. Yes, and as much as I hate to admit it, our friend Jill is just a file at police headquarters. But you, my love, are absolutely the cutest, most innocent-looking woman I have ever met, and a file clerk at police headquarters. Sylvia's mouth popped open. But I can get us info from her files, Pepper finished, and flopped down on the beanbag, exhausted. But she popped back up. Venus, you got beer in the fridge? Yeah, I answered. Why? Pepper rubbed her hands together. Because it's going to take time to work out a strategy. We can't expect LAPD to figure it all out. We know Jill Abraham better than anyone. We can do this. And that's how I began to concentrate on something other than that awful image of Jill lying on the floor with a hole in the center of her head. I needed this, or I would have gone to pieces and just stayed there. We each took a beer and a piece of paper and a pen and wrote down our ideas. 4 hours later, we were out cold with at least 20 pieces of notepaper scribbled with sensible, horrific, sneaky, or bizarre ideas. I woke up with a piece of yellow-lined paper stuck to the side of my face and a cramp in my neck from sleeping on one of the bean bags. My tongue felt strangely hairy, and I was dying of thirst, so I made a big jug of lemonade from concentrate. My friends were curled up together on the sofa, and I couldn't look at them because being without Jill was killing me. So I concentrating on making French toast, bacon, and lemonade. By the time my friends were showered, keeping their shower fun play as quiet as possible, I was serving up a pretty nice breakfast. I even added orange slices. I was going to find out what happened to my girlfriend, and my friends were going to help me. The phone rang, a bright yellow Princess phone picked out by Jill when we first decided to decorate the place. Venus, are you okay? It was Jill's father. I guess so, I replied. Mom, Clarissa, and I wanted to know if you were okay over there by yourself. I put a sign on the restaurant door because we really need time to pull ourselves together, he said. Oh, thank you, Jonathan. Pepper and Sylvia came over to keep me company. How's Mom, Clarissa? I walked over to the window, peeped through the curtains, and saw a small crowd around my restaurant. They were our neighbors and patrons, dropping off flowers beside the door. Jonathan interrupted my peeping and said, She's a mess. The doctor gave her something to sleep, but when she wakes up, she just starts screaming and crying again. I can handle the funeral, but you have to help your mom. My mouth fell open. I felt guilty and selfish and turned away from the window. Okay, I'll be right over. I'm so sorry. As Pepper and Sylvia came out of my bedroom, I was rushing for my skates, lacing them up and heading out the door. Breakfast is on the table. Lock up when you want to leave. Although it was early morning and I had a bitch of a hangover, I still got a few whistles as I skated by in my gleaming white skate boots. My transportation, since the craze had invaded the country in the mid-'70s. In those days, we had a peanut farmer for a president, and I shampooed my hair with a shampoo called Gee, Your Hair Smells Terrific, and Anita Bryant had begun a one-woman crusade against gays, mistakenly believing that we were dangerous around children. The world was changing fast, and it was a cool thing to watch. I skated into their building and took the elevator to the 3rd floor and knocked on 303. Mr. Abraham opened the door, looking at wit's end, hair tousled, same clothes as yesterday. I took off my skates at the door and padded across the ridiculously large apartment to the bedroom. I found Clarissa sprawled across the bed in an overly fluffy, floor-lint, powder blue nightie. She wasn't asleep. She was just staring into space. I hugged the doorway and said, Mom? She looked up at me, gasped, sat up, and opened her arms to me. Venus,